Next up in the bedroom is the ceiling tiles. So we bought a copper colored tile, similar to what we did in the bathroom. We also bought a nickel colored tiles, but they, if you know how our luck goes with these stores, they messed that up. So we had to return what they shipped us, which was additional copper color, and we had to reorder the nickel or sort of silverish color for that living room. So we were just kind of happy that the way they messed up was so that we could finish the bedroom ceiling, get this room done, and have it done and ready to go before we get to the living room. If you recall from the video about the bathroom ceiling that we did, each one of these panels has to be wiped down with alcohol before we put the power grab. Lucite power grab, not sponsored, in a pattern that is recommended by the manufacturer. These instructions came with the tiles from the manufacturer, so we're going to follow their recommended pattern for putting the glue on the back of the panels before they get put up. So this wall is really wonky. This is actually all the walls were affected by our collapse that we had. So we've got quite a little bit of a wave. We're trying to figure out the best way to put these panels up. We have some extra panels from the bathroom ceiling, and we're going to try a little experiment with modifications on those before we put the copper panels up in the bedroom, and make sure that we can trim them the way that they'll need to be trimmed. So our plan right now, which may change, is to put the panels up lengthwise like this, so the trimming on the edges is less of a distance, because I'm going to be the one trimming Don will be putting them up, and that way I have less distance to mess these things up. So we're going to do a little experiment with that before we go full on with the copper panels.
Puerto Rico, esta bomba yo la dedico a toda mi gente de Puerto Rico, a la familia Fontanet, allá en Cupe Alto y Lo Mejía en Vega Baja, que gocen. ¡Sí! Bomba, bomba, para siempre. Bomba, bomba está presente, aquí lo canta mi gente. Bomba, bomba, para siempre.
So we finished the faux tile in the bedroom. We still, of course, have to do our crown molding, which is going to go along this wall here. And we'll still have to, of course, do a baseboard after we're done. And I'm getting ready to finish cleaning up the floor really well. And then in this area here, and this area over here, we'll put a little bit of leveling compound. Any place else that I feel like needs it, we'll get some leveling compound. And in the visible seams, we're going to put a concrete stuff thingy. Let me show you. This stuff, concrete crack sealant. Once the sealant is in place and the leveling compound is done, then I'll go ahead and put a concrete sealant over the whole thing, the entire floor, after it's been washed. And then we'll go to town on the bag floor, the brown paper floor. Fantastic. So it's a little echoey in here, sorry about that. Working on this floor in the bedroom. Yesterday I swept, mopped, did the sealant along the seams between the little slabs. And today I'm going to start with doing some fill-in with the leveling compound Not going to do the whole floor, just going to do some trouble areas. The dry pour that we did, that was a problem. I'm going to do the first wet pour that we did according to the instructions on the bag, literally. I'm going to do some of the spots that need to be filled. And then there's a couple tiny spots around the floor that I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of leveling compound, so I'm not going to use much. One thing that's recommended with the leveling compound, and we are not sponsored by anyone, we are not professionals at any of this, but anyway, the leveling compound suggests using a primer. So we're going to be using this primer. It'll go on the areas that I'm going to put the leveling compound first, and then we can immediately, we don't have to wait, we can immediately put the leveling compound on there following the primer. So we'll do that, and then I'm going to do the sealant for the floor, and we'll let that rest overnight, let it cure overnight, and then tomorrow I will start on the paper floor. Exciting stuff. My leveling compound has cured enough to handle. I've kind of smoothed out some of the rough edges. There were a few little rough edges on that. Some I'm going to just keep, because when the paper goes down, it never is really a smoothly flat floor. It has all sorts of character, all sorts of, you can see the edges of each piece of paper as you lay it over, as you overlay or overlap those pieces. So I'm thinking that it's not going to be an issue. It just will add a little more character. So I've already gone ahead and cleaned the floor again, and now I'm going to go ahead and put the concrete sealer on. So I'm going to go over what I need for this floor, and everybody's different. This is not a tutorial. We have watched, or I have watched, I don't know how many paper floor videos, read up on it, all this stuff, and everybody does it a little bit differently. So I try to take what I've learned from all that information and do, hopefully do a good job. So I've got in here tons and tons of brown paper that I've torn into irregular shapes, crumpled, and then straighten it out again. This paper is, let me show you. It comes from a roll like this. This is that heavy paper you get at Lowe's or Home Depot. It's super heavy. It's heavier than the craft paper rolls you get at like the hobby stores or something. So it's pretty thick. That was one thing that I noticed in a lot of the videos, was that people had wished that they had gone with a heavier paper for more durability. So that's why I chose this paper over actual brown paper bags, which is lighter weight, or the brown craft paper you get at like, you can get at Walmart, probably Target, the Hobby Lobby, any of those hobby stores, Joann's, Michael's, any of those kind of places. So I'm going with a heavier stock. So I've already torn up quite a bit. I don't know that this is enough. This is, that roll that I just showed you comes in 300 square foot rolls. So this is most of one roll plus part of that roll. I'm hoping to have enough torn, but if not, I have the roll in here. The next component that we're going to need is our glue. So what I saw on all the videos was that Elmer's school glue or any kind of school glue, white school glue, will do. And the consensus was a 50-50, 1-to-1, a gallon of glue to a gallon of water, or however you're using your glue. Some people just buy those little bottles because you can get them at this time of year, you know, in the school sales, the back to school sales, pretty cheap. We got this at Target for about 12 bucks a gallon. Next, I've got my wood stain. After the glue has all dried on all the tiles, I'm going to stain the paper on all the tiles. After the glue has dried on all the paper, then I'll come back and I'll put a stain on the paper. There's some discussion as to whether you should stain the paper before you do any of this. I think it's just going to be personal preference. I don't want a dark stain. A lot of people do dark stains, but I just don't want a dark stain. I want the floor to be kind of vibrant and bright. I've got a couple of these bins. I'm going to put the glue and water mixture in. I'm going to use this big wide 6-inch brush to apply everything, so hopefully it'll go a little bit quicker. I've got a kneeling pad, because as you know, my knees aren't that great. And I just can't do knee pads very well. They kind of constrict my legs a bit, so I'm going to use the kneeling pad. I have some stain sponges for the stain when I put the stain on. And then I have my poly acrylic. This is a water base. I have a water-based stain, a water-based poly to do the final coats. And something I'm going to do, something I kind of got an inspiration from someone who did a video where she misted this little sparkly mica dust on it. This is bigger mica flakes. We're not sponsored by any of these people, just so you know. I found these online, and because our faux ceiling in here is copper, we're going to go with copper flakes. So I'm not going to open the bag just yet because I don't want it to fly everywhere. But as we're putting on the poly, I'm going to be sprinkling these flakes to give the floor some depth and some sparkle, because I'm just a girl who loves things that sparkle. So that's what we're going to do with that. Now, as I'm working, some of this stuff will eventually get pulled out of here while we're waiting for the paper to dry. We're just going to give it an overnight dry once the whole room is done. And then we'll start with the stain, we'll start with everything else. So hopefully we can get it done before too long, pretty quickly. So we'll show you the start of the process. One thing too that people have mentioned, kind of when you get the factory cut edge on your paper, this factory cut edge, put it against your walls that are fairly straight. That way you don't have to worry about anything poking out. Now this wall, of course, is going to get a baseboard, so I don't know if that would matter that much. But around the edges, we're not quite sure. Around the cob walls, the earth bag walls, we're not quite sure what we're going to do, if anything. So I'm going to go ahead and still put that straighter edge, manipulate it as much as I can around those edges of those walls as well. So hopefully I've got everything I need. A brush that I'm going to use for this around the edges of the walls, and then also I'll use a paint roller to put the bulk of this on. Scissors if I need to trim any pieces of paper, and of course my water. So there you have it. That's what we're going to use. Something I didn't talk about. The paper has like two sides, so you might notice a color difference. So the paper rolls that I got, I don't know if you can see it on camera, one side has a little bit more of a reddish brown, while the other side has a little bit more of a yellowish brown. So you'll notice that kind of variation throughout your placement of the floor. And then also different rolls may have different kind of colors to them. So if you use a couple of different rolls, kind of mix up those papers so you don't have a whole big space that's all one color. So this is how far I've gotten today with this, of course, all around the walls. And then this corner here, quite a little bit. I'm not saying quite 25%, but you know, it's getting there. It's taken me quite a little while. Started really in earnest about 10 a.m. It's just a few minutes after 5 p.m. We did take a nice long lunch break. So, you know, it takes a little bit of time. Let's take a look over here. Now these darker parts, this is one I just did, these two. So they're gonna lighten up because these were all nice and dark too when I first put them down. And you can see, it's just, I think it's turning out wonderful. Lots of variation in colors. And you can kind of see like the red, this is kind of reddish, this is kind of yellowish, in the brown tones, if you will. So it's turning out nicely randomized. as far as the color goes. And the pieces go as well. So I know I did not tear enough paper. So as I get closer to the end, I will do some more paper tearing kind of as I go probably. So there you go. Let's see how it turns out. So it's the next morning. Just a couple little ditzels. There's just one little spot here that's kind of turned up, and then there's two spots right there and one more right about there that I'll need to put another piece on because they're showing the concrete and we don't want that. So I'm going to start and do a little bit of work in here and then stop and help Dawn with the project. Once that project's done, I'll come back in here and work some more on this floor. I think it's turning out absolutely marvelous. Marvelous. I don't even know if I'll put the stain on. It's looking so good. And let me get you a little closer to those spots I need to cover. Right here and right there. So I might just take a long narrow strip and cover the whole thing with it. And then this end, I might just trim it off or just try and glue it back down. And we'll see. And that's one of the beautiful things about this floor. Repairs are super simple. As with anything we do here, things always take longer than we anticipate. Plus, for some reason, I'm only working a few hours in the morning on this floor and stopping. I don't know if it's just cause, I think. So anyway, I hope to finish it up. I've got a little bit less than half, maybe about a third of the floor to finish up. So I'm gonna go ahead and work on it today. Dawn and I tore up some more paper yesterday because I had run out. So hopefully I can get this thing done. Also, I bought the wrong poly for the floor. I looked at the instructions yesterday and it specifically states not for floors. So I have to take that back and get the right stuff. It's expensive, or I would just hang on to it for another project. But yeah, we're gonna have to, when I finish this floor, we'll make a run to Sierra Vista. I'll exchange those cans of poly for the correct product that's designed for floors. The reason that stuff that I bought was not is it isn't as durable as it needs to be for traffic. It did say that you could use it, but expect to be having to redo high traffic areas. So in the following clip, I'll show you how when you don't get that overlap of about a ½ an inch or more on the pieces you're putting down, it can, as it dries, as it cures, it can pull apart a little bit. So I'll show you a section where that happened and how to fix it. It's just simple. You just put another piece over it. So just watch that next clip. One thing that the labels all say on the polyurethane or the polyacrylic that I had bought by mistake was to stir it like with this paint stir stick, not to shake it, and not to use like a drill to mix it with because you'll get air bubbles. So we don't want air bubbles. If you get air bubbles, you're gonna have to sand. So I don't wanna have to sand. So I've already mixed it. I'm gonna go ahead and pour it in my pan. And the roller I have chosen is a foam. It's a very thin foam rubber or foam roller that I'm going to apply this with. So this has a dry time. We can do our recoats every 2 hours. So once I'm done with the first coat, I'll set a timer for 2 hours and then come back in and do the second, third, fourth, and see how far I get. We've got semi-gloss. For 3 of the gallons. Each gallon states it'll do about 500 square feet with a thin application. And then we've got our 3rd gallon is a high gloss. So we'll probably put that one on last. I don't know, it's just the way we're doing it. That first coat is done. I'm not sure if you can see, especially like right here, it does cause the paper to wrinkle up again. I didn't have too much trouble with it wrinkling when I was putting it down, but I can see, and this is to be expected. That's what everybody said, was to expect it to kind of wrinkle up a little bit again, and that will relax. They also said it could take up to 2 weeks for it to fully relax. So this first coat took nearly a full gallon of the polyurethane, and I'm thinking it's just because the paper is still so absorbable, or is still absorbing a lot of moisture. So I'm hoping that the subsequent layers won't be as consuming for the gallons of polyurethane, but we'll see. So this is 2 coats of the polyurethane. I'm getting ready to go ahead and put the 3rd coat on, and I had originally planned to put the copper mica on with this 2nd coat and just totally forgot. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on with the 3rd coat. So it's a little awkward. I don't want to have the camera in there while I'm applying the polyurethane. So I will get some pictures of it, some video of it after I'm done, and we'll see what the mica looks like. The floor, we ended up putting 5 coats of polyurethane on the floor. At the 3rd coat, I sprinkled in, you can kind of see the copper mica, see all the little specks. And then I put 2 more coats on top of it. I think it turned out great. Quite lovely. Those are the copper mica flakes that I sprinkled on after the 3rd coat, or with the 3rd coat, I should say. All throughout the floor. Topped it off with 2 more coats of polyurethane. The floor is done. We're just waiting for 3 days total before we move any furniture in there, just to give it an ample amount of cure time. We also need to get some little furniture feet protectors to help protect the floor from the feet of the bedroom furniture. And we haven't gotten our rugs yet, or of course our curtains, drapes, whatever we're going to put up there yet. So, you know, yeah, we got a lot of work to do in here still. Still have to do a baseboard and a crown molding on the top of this wall here. So yeah, little bits, and of course outlet covers. We still need to put those on. We need to find some. Last time we looked, we couldn't find any. But it's been a while, so we do need to go look in earnest to get some plate covers. Like this one has a cover, but all the ones on the cob wall do not have covers yet. So there's 3 cob walls, so that's 2, 4, 6 outlets, maybe 7. 7, because that wall has 3. So yeah, it's done. It's so exciting. Anyway, that's going to be it for this week's video. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Comments and questions in that comment section below. And we'll see you next time.